All right, you've asked for that insider information and now I'm going to deliver. In this video, I'm going to share with you what recruiters say versus what they actually mean. Hey everybody, it's Brian from Life After Layoff, and today I want to share with you some true insider information. As a corporate recruiter with over 20 years of experience hiring thousands of people into some of the world's most well-known and well-regarded companies, I do know a thing or two about what the recruiter says in an interview and what we actually mean. And in this video, I want to spill the beans with you, give you an insider's advantage so that you can play your cards right and give yourself the best possible chance of landing that dream job. So I think it's important to clarify something, that there are two different types of recruiters. There are headhunters, and then there's the corporate recruiter. The headhunter is a third party that is contracted by the company in order to place the position on contingency. And what that means is that they get paid on placement. So if you get hired by the company, that company's going to pay the headhunter a portion of their salary. Usually it equates to anywhere from 15 to 25% of your year one income. Now, in the case of a headhunter, they're not usually going to have the same level of knowledge of the role that an internal corporate recruiter would have. And now, what's the difference between them and the internal corporate recruiter? The internal corporate recruiter sits as part of a talent acquisition department inside of the company. It's maybe under the HR umbrella, or it might even be a standalone department, but they are full-time employees of that company, and their job is to place the best possible talent. And they get paid a salary, so they're usually looking for the best possible fit for their hiring manager because that's the metric that they're graded on. And the thing about the internal corporate recruiter is they usually support a specific functional group, and they work with a lot of the same hiring managers over and over again. So they build up a relationship, and they usually have very good alignment on what the position requirements are and what the hiring manager is expecting. So as you enter into that first interview with the corporate recruiter, it's usually a screening interview to assess you on the baseline competencies for the role. So the insider information that I'm giving you today is specifically geared towards the internal recruiter's interview versus the external headhunter. So without further ado, let's jump into some of those things that you should be listening for. Now, the first one is, if I ask you what you know about the company, this is actually a first interview question. And if you walk into the interview without any understanding of what the company does or what the position is, it's actually going to be a red check against you. Make sure that you come in prepared because it's an indicator of your level of interest and the amount of engagement that you're going to have in the process. And we look for that as corporate recruiters to make sure that we're presenting candidates that truly are interested in the positions. So then the next thing we assess in the interview is if you have certain skills or competencies that are a baseline for success in the position. If I ask you if you have a specific skill or a specific experience and you don't have it, chances are I'm probably not going to send you on to the next round. Because when I ask you about certain competencies, those are the requirements of the position and ones that my hiring manager will absolutely need to see on your resume in order for you to move on to the next round. Now, this isn't 100% true every single time. There are instances where if you don't have a specific competency, but you have other things that you bring to the table, we may take a look at that and move you on. Now, the next thing is if I have to rephrase a question for you repeatedly or bring you back to the same question over and over again, it's likely that you're missing the mark. So instead of giving me the same type of answer, stop, listen to what the recruiter is asking you, and carefully recalculate how you answer the question, because each question is very carefully tailored to assess a certain competency. If you don't know what I'm asking you in the interview, it's okay to stop and say, can you please give me an idea of what it is that you're looking for? And that way I can give you a better tailored answer. Now, if you ramble for a long period of time and never come up for air, and I don't ask you any follow-up questions, you're almost certainly moving yourself to the no pile. Because generally speaking, long-windedness in the interview is the kiss of death. In almost no case will I send a candidate on who is extremely long-winded and doesn't answer the question concisely, because our hiring managers will look at that as an indicator that you won't be able to effectively communicate and influence senior business leaders in a business setting. So answer the questions directly and concisely and let the interviewer probe you further if they need more information. Now, as we get to the end of the interview, and I think that you might be a fit, I'm going to ask what your compensation expectation is. But if I don't ask what your compensation expectation is, you're almost certainly in my no pile. Because at that point, I've already determined that you're not a fit, and it doesn't really matter what your compensation expectation is because we're likely not going to get to that point anyway. Conversely, if I do ask what your salary expectation is, and it is a little higher than my range, I will tell you. And I might say something like, the salary range that we are scoping for this role is between this and this. So it's a little bit lower than what you're expecting. Would you be open to that? And if you are, answer honestly. But if you're more than say 10 or 15,000 apart, then I'll probably come back to you and say, this position is scoped a little lower than you're expecting. And if you don't mind, I'll give you a call when I have a more enriched role. And that's my way of telling you that unfortunately we can't afford you. And in all honesty, it's probably a position that you don't want anyway if it's going to be drastically below your expectation. So stand firm in your realistic requirement and make sure you're armed with good data. Now, if I ask you if you have any questions for me, the interview is effectively over. And when I ask you this question, I already know if I'm going to send you on to my hiring manager or not. No amount of selling at this point is going to change my mind. The question is more formality, or it's a chance for you to get the information that you need in order to make a good decision about us, and especially if it's a mutual fit. Now, if I try to sell you the job and get you really excited about it, that means that I think you're a potentially great fit for the role, and I'm certainly going to send you on to my hiring manager. And I'm already trying to pre-sell you if we get to the point where we'd make an offer. However, if I wrap up the interview in 10 to 15 minutes, you're likely not a fit because that's all the time I need. In fact, most candidates I know within 5 to 7 minutes whether or not they're going to be a decent fit for the role. So come out of the gate strong. Make sure you make your best first impression if you want to get past that first round interview. Now, if I end the interview by telling you that we've had a lot of interest in the position and we just started interviewing and we'll be back to you whenever we've completed all of our interviews, the chances are you probably are not moving on. Again, a particularly good candidate, we're going to try to pre-sell. In fact, if I introduce who the hiring manager is and I tell you that I'm going to put you on his calendar, that's a really great sign that you're moving forward in the interviewing process and things look really solid. All right, so there you have it. There's some insider information directly from a corporate recruiter telling you exactly what it is that we mean when we say certain things in the interview. So hopefully you'll use these cues to your advantage as you go through the next interview process. But if you find yourself needing more help, that's actually something that I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com. It's loaded with tips and tricks, all from an insider's perspective. And I share my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of training courses. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. It's designed to help you write a resume that's going to give you the best chance of getting noticed by that corporate recruiter and ultimately land that first interview. But not only do we teach you how to write the resume, but I actually teach you how to use it strategically to your advantage to position yourself the strongest. But once you get that first round interview, it's up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of the interviewing process. And that's where the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp comes in. We walk through each step of that interview process. I give you a lot of insider information, tips and tricks, and it'll ultimately help you land that offer. If you're struggling with your interviewing, it's definitely something to check out. Hey, if you found value in this video, sure would appreciate a thumbs up because that really does help the algorithm get my channel out to a broader audience. Appreciate you watching. Happy job hunting. Hopefully you get all those good verbal cues from the recruiter, and we will see you on the next one.